So what do you want to talk about?
I don't have anything I can think of that I want to talk about, but if you ask me, seek the right kind of questions, or just bring up a topic that...
I've got a question.
Okay. It doesn't have to be a question. It could just be a generalized topic.
What made you bring up the flat earth topic the other night?
What made me bring up the what?
The flat earth subject.
Oh, well, I have been reading about it, wondering about it, and...
Where did you first hear about it?
I don't remember what article I had read that dealt with the topic, but it was on the internet, I'm sure, and I was just curious about it. And I thought that if I were to speak of it to you, you would know something about it and would have something to say. And I was right, you do have something to say. Well, the thing you had to say that does not surprise me is that yes, you're convinced that that is the truth.
It doesn't surprise you?
No, because it's coming from you. It doesn't surprise me that you would have something, that you would take a position that is unlike the rest of mankind.
So, what does that say about me? And we really don't know each other very well, right?
Well, we know
we've spent.
I feel that I know you well enough.
But we've only spent 10 hours together, and you've been face down and dribbling.
Well, that's not always necessary. I got an impression of something about what you are like from the time we did meet a year ago, and
2 years ago.
Is it 2?
Yeah.
That's my memory.
But we...
Okay, and I expected that we would continue to have interesting conversations, and I was right, and we will continue to do that even next year, once again.
Good.
Yeah.
I was paranoid, and I thought that somebody must have been telling you, oh, Elissa's a flat earther, she's crazy.
No,
and that's why you thought...
I don't know other people who know you.
Right, I mean,
but I'm sure that if I did, they would say you're crazy.
It's good to be thought of as crazy.
I think so.
Yeah.
I certainly am.
It's freeing.
Yes. I have that reputation.
So what was your first thought when you heard that there were some people suggesting that the Earth might not be a sphere?
I don't know if I can trace it back to a first thought, but certainly an early thought was, could this be? Could this be? Is this one of those things that I cannot know a genuine answer to?
Well, what if I was to suggest to you that what we used to hold as the idea of a sphere is a belief, and that we can know the answer, and we can prove that the sphere is actually a flat plane with scientific measurements.
I hear you saying that. I myself do not know how to arrive at that very understanding.
Okay,
I hear you saying that you have that.
That's a good question, right? That would be a question that would be coming up for you in the next few months as your mind
I don't know I don't know if I will succeed in finding that answer.
You know, Copernicus, was it him who, no, it was Eratosthenes in ancient times who apparently calculated the circumference of the Earth. And according to NASA and all the modern science, that for a sphere that's 25,000 miles, the equation to find the curvature over a horizon is 8 inches per mile squared. So every mile you square the mile and then you multiply it by 8 inches. And so if you look at something 20 miles away or 100 miles away, multiply it by 8 inches, divide it by 12, and you get the amount of feet of curvature that should be there. And this is why the Flat Earth movement has not gone away, and it has not been ridiculed into insignificance, because this is a measurable, observable, scientific, repeatable test that any man or woman can do to prove to themselves that the sphere of the size and shape that we are told is not observable. Understand?
What do I make of supposed photographs of the Earth taken from space, supposedly?
What do you make of photographs of the Loch Ness Monster?
I don't know what to make of that at all.
Because you know it could be faked, and you immediately assume,
but I also
and you
consider
immediately,
that it might be real too.
yeah, and that's a very great way to be. That's why. Do you mind if I tell the impending audience, if there's going to be one, your number of age of years?
No, go right ahead.
So Ron, you're 86, and you have this open mind. This is why I wanted to interview you and Marion.
I don't know that many people would look upon it as an open mind. They would look at it as I don't know, an uninformed mind, a childish mind, a naive mind, etc. And those things are possible truths.
But weren't we discussing the other, wasn't it Aristotle who said a mark of a man's intelligence or a woman's intelligence?
Yes, you can make that work and apply to me. But you can also make it work and apply to Donald Trump. And I'm pretty sure you can make it work and apply to Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay.
But actually, if you were to speak to your friends, how many out of 100 or out of 1,000 would be able to keep their mind open for a month or 3 while they question their own conditioning?
Well, I can think of one friend who is an astrophysicist, and he would be one who would not.
He would be closed down in 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't tell me
he would have genuine scientific explanations for why it could not be a flat Earth.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. What do you regard as genuine science? Let's get some baselines for our discussion.
Supposedly, it involves observations which can be replicated, which can be repeated.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's the difference between a conspiracy and scientific fact, is that it's replicatable, observable, testable, and shareable.
But I'm recalling that there are aspects of science that can be deceiving, and that they can't be replicated, or they are in motion, and so
Or they might be dogma, or they might be a religious type of pseudoscience.
The fact that you can speak of it as might be is where I am left with uncertainty.
There's, as they say, different branches of science, and science has languages, like maths is a language, and then it has natural science, which is repeatable, testable, observable. Astrophysics is a lot of dogma upon dogma, and these people will describe it to you as standing on the shoulders of giants. Yeah. But the older I get, the more I realize this is often being spoon-fed dogma by pseudoscientists.
Entirely conceivable.
Yeah.
Entirely conceivable.
Yes, and a lot of people have their own ego and their own self-importance that makes it very hard for them to drop back down into that child mind that you berate yourself for having, for retaining all these decades, which is something I'm celebrating you for.
I'm far too uneducated to be able to feel any differently than uncertain.
Well, this is how we've all been conditioned to lose our touch with our own senses, our own eyes, our own ability to measure, our own brain, and we've given ourselves over to the authorities, right? So Copernicus or whoever it was that said the sun was 3 million miles away, and then they said it's 5, and then they said it's 10, and then somebody else came 20 years later, and now it's 93 million miles away. This is conjecture upon conjecture upon conjecture.
Understood.
So this type of astrophysics can never tell us the nature of the what we're standing on, whether it's a sphere or if it's flat. Photographs from space are not scientific evidence as much as we would like them to be, because photographs can be tampered with. You know, footage from the moon landing, you can put into a computer program and see that it was photoshopped 50 years ago.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about, and what all of these people in the world who are on this movement, we're looking at evidence that's measurable, repeatable and testable that we can share with people and show them, look, you can see Oahu from this other island in Hawaii, and it should be over the curve according to this. And then rail guns in the military can shoot 100 miles flat across the ocean. They don't curve with the gravity of the earth like they'll tell you that they do. They shoot straight like a laser. And they couldn't do that unless the ocean was flat for 100 miles, and the ocean can't be flat for 100 miles because it's supposedly a sphere.
I hear your explanation, all of which sounds believable. However,
It's provable.
I can't help being aware that there are others who are also knowledgeable and probably more knowledgeable than you are, who would have an alternative explanation that would also sound believable.
I have been for 3.5 years looking for those people who are more knowledgeable than me that can share with me some scientific evidence that disproves what my senses have taken in when I've done my experiments by sitting at Playa del Carmen and looking at Cozumel, which should be over the curve.
All I can say in response to that is that I feel that I know some such person that you have not yet met.
Oh, no, of course there's people in the world that I haven't met, but maybe we can discuss with him in time in future.
I don't know that I could, because when he starts to discuss scientific matters with me, it is so abstruse, it is so knowledgeable, it requires so much training and experience. I have to give up. And I can't pretend that I understand much of what he says, but I can tell that what he is saying is, you would call it dogma, which it might be.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it dogma.
Okay.
I
Well,
would be able to separate.
But I can tell that it's based on his genuine education.
Yeah, I can separate dogma from concepts that are beyond my understanding or intelligence. I really recognize dogma is something that I have, or that I can disprove, that is an accepted tenet of life. Like to say that my keys fall because of gravity. If I drop my keys, to say that gravity is a force that pulled my keys down is dogma. To say that density, the keys are denser than the air around them, that is natural, repeatable, testable, observable, a science. Okay, gravity is still a theory, whereas density has no dogma about it. You understand the difference? And I don't need to be an expert to separate those things. And what I'm very cautious of is I don't want to use my limited intelligence as a reason for me to continue being fooled, if that is in fact what has been happening for 500 years. And like I said, this isn't a conversation that in 2 or 3 hours we can settle. This is something that one has to undo one's own mind control and conditioning. If you learn that the Earth is a sphere at 4 or 5 years old, then you watch Star Trek and Star Wars, and then you have a globe in every school classroom and in every house. It actually takes years to unprogram the mind to think of it as anything but a globe.
Is that a reason for considering, at least, or maybe even going so far as to believe that therefore those other so-called planets are also flat?
Well, we can't judge this place where we are by what we see in the sky. It's like saying a table can look out at all
Yeah,
the
okay.
chairs, but it doesn't make the
So
table
what
a
would
chair.
what would be the purpose of its flatness if every other planet is in fact round? Why
Well,
would there be one?
Our planet is very different from all the other planets.
Yeah,
Our planet is
that would be a difference.
our
for
planet
sure.
is if it's a planet or it might be a plane, it's a realm which supports life, and none of the other planets do support life that we can see or know from here. The other thing is when you look at a NASA picture of a planet or one of the space agency photos of a planet, it's a very, very different thing from what the best non-NASA, non-Vatican telescope can show you. What we can see when we look out at the stars is a mandala of light effects that's shimmering and shivering. But when NASA shows you a photo of Uranus, it's very different. So amateur photography and NASA, or amateur photography and the European Space Agency, they're showing us two different things. Obviously they have better equipment, but they're showing us two completely different things. And what you realize after many months of looking at the two differences is that one, everything that's taken by amateurs and independents is showing like a mandala of changing light, like a twinkling star, like a planet, right, is a wandering star, that's what they're called. Whereas NASA shows us a 3D Tierra environment, you know. So it might be further for, like, when I say NASA, this is a Freemasonic agency.
Are you suggesting that the photographs that NASA shows are depictions? They're put together?
Yeah, they're CGI. They're created.
But I have to think that there must be a multitude of photographs that show that the Earth is round, not made by NASA, though.
There's not one single photo of the Earth from space that's real. When you Google it, there's not one single real photo. They say they took one in 1972 on their last moon mission, and it's not real. It's CGI. Even the people at NASA admit it themselves, that they take layers of imagery and they put them all together and paint them and put the clouds in.
And what would their reason or need to do that be?
Well, if they started this 500 years ago or longer, which is what they're talking about, when you're thinking about potentially even Pythagoras being one of the first Freemasons, and that secret societies hold secrets from the masses which make them different and separate and above, then if they started fooling us 500 or 600 years ago, if they decided to, let's flip this, if they knew that it was a plane and they thought, let's tell everybody, instead of we're on this plane. Now, this plane might go infinitely that way or that way. It might go 500 miles further than we think it currently goes. If it's not just the base of the Earth, if it's not just the South Pole as we know it, that icy base of the Earth, if it does in fact, if the Earth is actually like a flat plane and the South Pole is all around and holding the waters in, we don't know how far the ice goes. We don't know if there's an edge to it or if it goes to another puddle over there with another sun and stars and moon. And
is
it's
there
all
a
conjecture.
belief that a flat planet nevertheless rotates around the sun?
No, it's actually all the experiments that have been done scientifically in the last 100 years show that the Earth is stationary and that the luminaries revolve around us. They show that the sun and the Earth are actually the same size, and they are going on this circular path around the Earth, and they go from the Tropic of Cancer over the equator out to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then they circle back in. And it's also on an analemma, so it goes down when it's lower and wider, or when it's higher and closer. So right now we're in Mexico and the sun is keeping Australia warm because it's further out. It's on the Tropic of Capricorn during our winter in the Northern Hemisphere, and their summer in the Southern Hemisphere, because the sun is right out in the widest circle. But then in our summer, in 3 or 4 months, in the Northern Hemisphere, the sun is going to be closer, circling this Tropic of Cancer. And that's why the North Pole has 24-hour sun in those few days, for that period in the middle. And of course, Ron, I'm a massage therapist from Australia. I'm not a genius. I'm not a scientist. All I'm talking about is things I've learned, and I'm just so happy to meet somebody else who can keep their mind open for a few hours and think about such a radical concept. For me, when I first heard about it, it made me angry. It made me think, how could people be so stupid? And then I had to work out what their reasoning was for following that idea.
I don't know that I instantly gravitate to thoughts of people being stupid if they have ideas that are anathema to my own. But I do wonder, consequently, about why and how they arrived at that way of thinking. I'm curious to know about that.
Yes. Well, for me, I think a large part of coming to this was that I had to learn other things first. I had to prove things to myself first. I had to realize the moon landing is a big ruse on humanity. And that took me 20 years of coming and going and researching and then taking my step back, and I thought, yes, it's fake. No, it's real. Yes, it's fake. No, it's real, for 10 years, when I'd find some more evidence to push me that way, and then I'd find some more evidence to push me that way. And I recognize now that the elitists love to keep us down by holding different knowledge, different information. And for me, looking at all of the astronauts that went to the moon, they're all Freemasons. They had Freemasonic aprons up on the moon. They put they had a Freemasonic flag. I don't know if all of them did, but they had. I've seen photos with Freemasonic aprons up on the moon, and they put a Freemasonic flag on the moon, apparently, when they didn't go there. So that was part of it for me, and it's such a massive, exciting potential that we could be so fooled. I like the idea that we could have been so fooled.
You like the idea?
Yeah. Because it just shows me that there's always so much more to learn, I think.
Is it conceivable that all photographs of heavenly bodies, let us call them, of planets, are false, and that what appears to be round is in fact not round at all, and taken from very high developed telescopes, let us say?
For me, if anything that comes through the establishment, like the Vatican telescopes or the space agencies, I can put that over there in a box and say it might be real, or it might be coloured a certain way to make me think a certain thing. Have you ever seen a modern day NASA photo of the planet Pluto?
No.
Well, if you Google that, I'll send you a photo on the email. The planet Pluto actually has the shape of the Disney character Pluto on the planet, because they are teasing us, they are mocking. That's how bad it gets. So you start to see things like that. When you look at these photos of the Earth that are very famous, they have photoshopped the clouds. They've got print and repeat patterns of clouds. They've got they've got sex written in the clouds. They've got...
Yeah, but weren't many of those photographs taken long before the advent of Photoshop.
When you start to research this, you'll Google photos of Earth from space, and you'll see it's all CGI.
Let me just ask this, Sue. Is there anything you know of that any religion says about the shape of planets?
We don't need to talk about the shape of planets here because we're talking about the shape of the Earth, and even if the planets are round, that's a base assumption.
Is there anything in the Bible?
The Bible says it's flat and motionless plane.
It's flat.
Doesn't it say the Earth's a flat and motionless plane?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Well, that's what I've never read the Bible because I think it's written by men who burnt women. So I've never liked that book.
You think it's written by
men who burnt witches?
Okay.
I don't like the Bible. It's got very bad energy for me. I still feel oppressed from another time. Even if I go into a room that has a Bible, I feel the room has bad energy. I've just always had and I didn't even go to church as a child, but I don't have a good relationship with something to do with that religion. In my heart, it's just an unexplainable thing. But for instance, NASA will show you a photograph from when they send up a balloon to take a photograph, they'll send up a balloon 120,000 feet and there'll be a curve. Then an amateur person will send up a camera 120,000 feet and it'll be flat. Repeatedly, amateur independent people send up their rocket cameras and it's always a flat horizon. The horizon always rises to eye level, which if you were on a ball, unless it was super much bigger than we thought, but if you're on a ball, the horizon will drop down as you rise up. Whereas if you're on a much bigger plane than you expect, then it will just keep going. If it's flat, then it will keep going out. See, a lot of people say, why can't you stand on the coast of New York and see Australia, or whatever the case may be? There is perspective problems. There's things in the atmosphere. There's reasons why we can't see even a person 6 miles down a beach because our eyes have limits and there is a point of the centre of the perspective of our eye, the way it works, that we can't see things past a certain point. But bring a telescope in and you can see that person still there. And this is what's amazing. 500 years ago, you could sit on a beach and watch a boat go over the horizon. But these days, everybody's got a phone in their pocket with a zoom lens, and you can bring a boat that looks like it's gone over the curve back into your focus because you've got this zoom lens, and then watch it go over the horizon with your phone lens and bring out a telescope, and you can bring it back into focus again because it's not going down and over something, it's just going out of the perspective of whatever lens you're looking through. So these are all anomalies, and it doesn't happen overnight. Like, it took me probably 6 weeks to get over my initial consternation that I would have to look into it, because I thought, this is boring. I don't even want to remind myself of what the proofs are that the Earth is a globe. I don't want to have to go back through all that boring Greek science and stuff, and Carl Sagan, but in the end, my questions kept popping up and popping up and popping up. And because I massage 4 hours, 6 hours a day with my mouth closed and my mind working, the questions just kept coming. And so I'd go and search, and then I'd find more.
So from what source or sources did you glean this understanding? Many
sources, because I was taught, one of my favourite teachers was a young guy who he's a yoga teacher who lives in Thailand, he was a truth researcher, kind of like I was for the last 10 years. He went down all the rabbit holes and went from the banking into the false flag agenda, into the governments, into the, the Federal Reserve lending themselves 10 times the money, into the moon landing hoax. And then he landed into this conspiracy and he went right into it. And then he set up, because he's a very organized and like, I don't know a nicer word, but pedantic type of, he's a very determined and rebellious person. He gathered hundreds of books from the 1800s, even earlier, from 1,000 years ago, from 500 years ago, from 50 years ago, and put them all on a website. He also wrote 2 books of his own. There's a very famous book from over 100 years ago by a guy called William Carpenter, which is called 100 Proofs the Earth is Not a Globe. And this guy, his name's Eric DeBay, he gathered 200 such proofs and put them in a modern day book and gave it away for free on the internet, and you can buy it as well. And then he made videos of this book, 200 Proofs, Earth is Not a Spinning Ball. Now it's been translated into 20 languages, and he's written 3 or 4 other books. And I really liked him as a person. I really liked his voice when I heard him making documentaries, which is so strange because I have other friends who are like, I don't like his voice, it's too monotonous. Whereas for me, it was a hypnotic, beautiful voice to listen to, and I listened to him for many hours over the 2015, 2016, and anything that he directed me to, I used my discretion, but I have very rarely found him to steer me wrong. And then when I had studied a lot of the people and read a lot of the old books, right back to Ptolemy. Ptolemy was a geocentrist.
Now, did you say you know this person personally?
Well, when I went to Australia last year, I wrote to him and said, can I come and visit you? Because he lives in Thailand, and I said, can I come and meet you for lunch one day so we can talk? Because in the last 5 years, I've gone and met a lot of my heroes, a lot of the great men and women that I really respect and regard. This is why I want to interview you.
Would you make sure that you send me the name of the book or this
Yes,
person so I can...
we'll keep talking when you go home, I'm sure, I hope. I love talking to you.
Okay,
but I'll send you...
Okay.
When I went to Thailand, I sat on a park bench with him for a day, and we went out for lunch another day, and we spoke for maybe 10 or 15 hours. That's not even enough time to get to know somebody,
Okay.
of course, right? I went to England 2 years before that, and I met another one of my heroes in the truth movement, who was David Icke, who turned out to be a gatekeeping, installed, maybe he was once good, but now he's an agent for the state to send people off on a wild goose chase. And the thing about the state is they have controlled opposition. You know your history. You know that if there's any rebellion to be led, that they will install their rebels first so that they control the movement. And 85-90% of the rubbish on YouTube today about Flat Earth is installed government rubbish. All of the conferences that are happening around the world are by uncharismatic, ugly idiots who are embarrassing this very important and serious discussion and gathering all the people with open minds and taking their money and their energy and steering it and socially engineering them. And Eric has nothing to do with those people, and this is another reason why I've enjoyed his work. But I'll send you this interview where I sit on a park bench and I talk with him for a few hours. But like I said, I've met Nassim Haramein, Ken O'Keefe, David Icke, Benny Wills, Maxie. I've met and spoken to a lot of the leaders in the truth movement, the people just putting questions out, and a lot of them have turned out to be gatekeepers or these controlled opposition. And that's why I personally wanted to meet this guy, because I thought he's very brave to take on this challenge, but many other challenges he's taken on too. And I thought he's actually achieved it. He's not the only one. There are thousands of people out there now talking about this, but because he's so organized and he put the 200 Proofs book together, and then you listen to some of his interviews, and it's very exciting. But there are other people around the world, qualified physicists and scientists and mathematicians, who are now agreeing with what I'm saying, with
Well,
what
that's
these people
I
are
was going
saying.
to ask if you know of any.
Yes, there are, but they're very few because most people will lose their job. There was a very interesting engineer speaking out a few years ago, and he apparently, well, we got warned that he would lose his engineering license if he kept speaking out about it. Because Freemasons are controlling the lie, and Freemasons control engineering license societies. And, you know, this is a very controlled world. You're looking like very suspicious.
Well, no, but so what is there about Freemasons that requires their upholding this understanding?
One, they love to have information different. Two,
Just for the sake of itself?
It's not all the Freemasons. It's not 95% of the Freemasons are innocent philanthropists, and they're doing great work for local communities.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very hiding inside that philanthropic organisation is a very dark force that works to keep us all enslaved and
Say it again. It works to do what?
to keep us all enslaved mentally.
How would that particular knowledge about the shape of the earth
Well,
keep us enslaved?
Think about this, right? Truman Show. Remember the movie with Jim Carrey?
I didn't see it, but I know about it.
It's a good movie. I especially think you'll enjoy it after you've looked into this more.
Okay.
But the Truman character constantly wants to go and explore the world.
Okay.
And when he's a little boy, he says to his teacher, I can't wait to go and I'm going to explore the world. And she says, well, you can't do that, Truman. Everywhere's already been explored. So imagine if this were a flat plane and not a planet. And imagine if the South Pole was imagine if the poles of the Earth, right, were like a ring magnet that's in a stereo speaker. North Pole at the centre and South Pole is a circle around. This is a magnet that actually exists within nature. There is no magnet in nature that is opposite ends of a ball, because a ball doesn't have opposite ends, for a start. So how do we get onto that? The South Pole. Imagine if the South Pole is not a one-pointed place like we're told, but a point in every direction distant from north. Perhaps there is further to explore, you see. Perhaps we've only gone so far over that ice, and perhaps they've told us we can't go further, and perhaps there is more earth. Perhaps there's more water. We don't know, and we're just taking people's words for it. I mean, I'm not going to go exploring as much as I'd like to, but I think that they'd kill me.
Well, so what is mankind to do in correcting this misinformation? Start out by getting rid of Masons?
I think we should just hang out together, be friends, talk, have nice cups of tea, and then we're taking the steps towards whatever change needs to happen. Keep our mind open is all we need, and that's why I wanted to talk to you, to show the world an example of a person who is old but not brittle. And I don't even mean old because you're not old, but according to most people, 48 is old, let alone 86.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're not brittle, and this is what I would hope for all of us.
Well, this turns out to be not at all an interview of me, but of yourself.
Really? It
Yes.
always is like that. You wait till you see.
You're the one who's doing all the explanation and making all the references that brought you to these explanations, where I am just saying, really, is this so, is that so? But it's not me. It's just me saying, okay, I hear you. I want to understand more, and I'm asking that you send me more. So that I can explore it on my own.
Of course, because you are still at the beginning stage, and you're even going to look stupid just for giving me this much time.
Well, I happen to have this much time anyway, and I do this with my time.
And if when I send you my interviews, you're going to see that I am the worst interviewer in the history of time.
Okay. We'll see. We'll see. But let us not forget, I got to get your email address.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'm going to track you down and harass you and harangue you.
Well, you don't have my email address.
Non-stop, yeah. I know, but I have Marion's number.
All right.
She's your manager.
You're laid back about this.
I know, I'm leaving it to the last minute.
Yeah.
I'm
So who
getting
else are you friends with that you have this understanding with?
Well, there's one girl who lived on this island.
On this island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's an English girl, but she's now living in England again. And when I started to post about flat Earth on Facebook, she told me, oh yeah, I think it's flat too. I've been studying this and this and this, and
Yeah.
I've done this. And I was like, oh my God.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't believe that somebody else had followed their own intuition or had done their own experiments to prove to themselves and had the balls to publicly say it as well. Because you do get ridiculed. I've lost friends. I've had many people actually bar me out of their life because
I understand that.
It's great. You want those people.
Like your father.
Oh yeah, you don't want your father to fuck you off forever, but a lot of my friends who've like basically pushed me away because I'm speaking about something they don't understand or won't spend the time to understand, I'm happy to lose them because I realise they're just a drag.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like a terrible thing, but...
Well, it can be a risky subject.
Why? What's the risk?
It's just what you're saying. You can lose friends.
But are they friends?
They
not
can be
even
friends except for they can be friends. Well, it's like Marion. She said she doesn't believe it, but she's your friend.
Yeah.
She said so.
Yeah.
It's not going to make her stop being your friend.
But you know, like the JFK assassination or 9/11, none of us were really there, and none of us can really conclusively prove as easily as we can conclusively prove that a globe of 25,000 miles circumference should have things that go over the curvature at a certain point. And when they don't, we can gather 50 of us or 500 of us to stand on the shoreline together and say, look through the telescope, it's flat. And you know how we know it's flat? Because water is a leveling tool. Water is always used to measure a level surface. And modern science will tell you, oh.
It's interesting now that I'm thinking of it. Marion mentioned that film that we saw many years ago called Balance, where there were just 3 people on the surface, supposed to represent the Earth, I believe. But the Earth was flat.
Was it?
Yeah.
In that film?
They were trying to balance themselves on a flat surface.
Wow. Like it would be harder than a globe.
Yeah, if it tilted a little bit, everything would rush
Slide off.
to one side. Yeah.
Ah.
And so they'd run to the opposite side to balance it.
And when did this come out?
Excuse me?
When did it come out?
I don't know exactly when it came out, but it had to have been more than 20 years ago. I
Right.
think.
Wow.
Balance. I
Well,
don't
there
know
was
how you
a-
can track it down.
I will look for it.
See if you can.
Apparently there was a...
Let me know if you succeed in finding it, and I will search for it myself, and if
send
I
it
find
to
it, I'll
me.
send it to you.
Yeah. There was it's very interesting when you look back at old films. In 1919 or 1929,
Yeah.
Werner von Braun,
Yes.
the founder of NASA,
Right.
the war criminal,
All right.
was a props guy on a movie set in Germany of a movie called The Moon and the Mirror or some name like that. He was the props guy, and it featured a big rocket being wheeled out of a big hangar and then being shot off to the moon in 1929. And this is exactly what he oversaw, apparently, as another props movie director in 1969. 50 years later, or, you know, Werner von Braun, see, as a child he worked as a props guy, And then all these years later, it was the ultimate deception. And now it's too much for one morning. I'm so grateful for your mind. But I will leave it at that for now. We'll swap emails and we'll talk
Okay,
soon.
I want to continue studying.
And you know, if you'd like to talk more in future, we can talk over Skype until you're next back here.
Yes, you can, and I shall.
But you must teach me how to be a better interviewer, because I am the worst of the worst.
Okay.
I have to leave room for you.
Okay.
Leave room for you.
Now you should turn around the camera. Well, it's too late now, but you should have had it turned around facing you rather than me.
People hate me. They don't want any more
Doesn't
of me.
matter. Doesn't matter. There will
That's
always
right.
be that for some reason.
Yes.
With maybe anyone in the world at any time.
Yeah, you can't take it personal.
Yeah. Well, okay.
The better you are. How do you feel? Do you feel tired? Do you feel weak? Do you feel...
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, but really, it's exhausting. For me, at the
Sure.
start, it was really tiring.
Yeah. It takes a willingness to listen.
See, yes.
And to respond
Yeah.
in an honest way.
And a lot of people don't. A lot of people think it's like, well, you're a Muslim and I'm a Jew, or, well, you're a Christian and I'm a New Ager.
Yes, correct.
A lot of people think, you believe what you believe and I believe what I believe. Your truth is your truth. No. We're talking about self-evident truth that anybody can prove
Yes.
with science, repeatable experiments. And we're also talking about not what we wish to be true. We're talking about observable, objective
Objective
reality,
truth, yeah.
right? So this is why when somebody says to me, you can believe in the flat earth and I'll believe in the sphere and we can still be friends, I'm like, thank you. But soon you're going to see, when more information and more people and more time passes, you're going to see that one of these is a provable thing and the other thing is conjecture and dogma. It's what's so fascinating. But also, the whole world is caught in its own brainwashing, and that's the part that I find most fascinating.
Well, speaking of these things and thinking about it, I wonder about people who have long-standing reputations as being reliable scientists dealing with the cosmos. And Carl Sagan was one, and I wonder why he would never have spoken about it, because he seemed to be a forthright, honest guy.
Oh, I loved Carl Sagan. I grew up on him. I believed Neil deGrasse Tyson was a good guy until I started to research deeper. I still believe that Carl Sagan, I don't know how much he knew. I don't even think Neil deGrasse Tyson is in the level of Freemasons that know this stuff. He may be becoming into that level, or they may have to let him in on it sooner or later, because he's making himself look stupid. Like, he says things in interviews which show that he himself has never sat at sea level and looked for something over the distance.
He has said things that...
Well, yes, I've seen him in interviews where he's said something like, how much, in an interview with Joe Rogan, which is a young, sort of trendy, You haven't seen my work on those two yet, have you? Thank God.
But Joe Rogan is one of the people that this astrophysicist friend I told you about recommended that I see.
What's your friend's name?
His name is Bob Cohen.
Okay.
And he's also a very good jazz pianist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan has had Neil deGrasse Tyson on his show.
He's had who on his show?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
And that's another one I wanted to speak about. Go ahead.
Well, after watching Joe Rogan's interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, I was completely convinced that Neil deGrasse Tyson is full of dogma and has not yet even done the simple experiments that I've done that prove to me the Earth is not a globe at
It's
25,000
interesting
miles.
that my friend, once again, looks upon Neil deGrasse Tyson as a pop kind of a figure.
He is. He's an idiot.
I don't know
He's
about
a
being an
TV.
idiot, but
He's a TV. He's like Bill Nye. They're spokespeople. They're advertisements. They're talking. They're paid. They're horrible. They're not what Carl Sagan was, in a sense. Although the older I look back.
Speaking of Bill Maher, I wish that he would deal with this topic.
Oh, I said Bill Nye, but you said Bill Maher.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. No, Bill Nye, the science
Bill Nye,
guy,
yes.
he's an idiot. He's one of those, they're basically...
Well, he's a pop guy.
Yeah.
So I know.
And so your friend, who's a real astrophysicist,
yes,
probably speaks about Neil deGrasse Tyson in the terms of he's a pop culture guy, because he would want to distance himself right now a little bit from the kind of astrophysicist that Neil deGrasse Tyson is. He's a book-selling, interview-doing, TV spokesperson for NASA, right? And to a serious scientist, they would look at that as, these serious scientists aren't making money, and Neil deGrasse Tyson's a millionaire over and over and over, right?
Yeah, I won't hold that against him.
No, but it's kind of like the difference between a virtuoso musician who's not making the money and Jay-Z.
But what about, what's his name now, the guy who recently died this past year, who was at Oxford and who was crippled by...
Stephen Hawke.
Yeah, he would have been an ideal person to bring up this topic.
Nobody knows what he's been saying for the last... I mean, you look into him a little bit more. I don't know if he is even what they say he was. This incredible genius.
You don't know that?
No, I don't know it for sure. I used to believe that, but these days I think he was a very clever front, to be a source of an outpouring of new knowledge and information that nobody could or would want to argue with because of his disability.
What about Einstein?
Einstein, if you research Einstein, he was not even a scientist compared to Nikola Tesla. Einstein was a similar kind of pop culture theorist. Compared to Nikola Tesla at the time, he wasn't even in the same caliber. But yeah, I understand. Einstein has been sold to us as one of the greatest minds of the last 100 years. But he wasn't one of the greatest minds. Nikola Tesla was, and Tesla was the great virtuoso who never got
Newton,
promoted.
what about those guys?
Well, once again, they're all Freemasons, and they are all directing and telling, and I'm not into I've never been into Newton because he's such a materialist.
When you keep returning to the description, Freemasons, it's almost as if you were describing Nazis.
Well, they're a men's club. The thing about Nazis is women could join, but Freemasons, well, they can't even have women. That's why it's annoying for me to see that everything is ruled over. The police have Freemason around their caps, around their third eye. Their car has the black and white checkerboard Freemasonry symbol. The judge has the Freemason's G on the gavel. The Freemasons control courts and police, so therefore we need to take notice of who they are.
Our American currency.
Of course.
You know what? You're alone in this world.
I am very alone. But you know what? I'm never lonely, and people can't wait to spend time with me, and I get all the invites to the best parties. But I don't necessarily want to go because not everybody is as patient with me as you are. I'm gonna over time, I'm gonna send you things, and in a year or two, you're gonna be like liberated from a prison your mind was in for 86 years.
We'll see how many of my few friends I lose.
I'd say one or two if you're lucky.
I think that's about all I have. Okay.
You've got plenty more friends than that, I know you do.
No, I don't have a lot of friends at all.
Well,
I don't know. It's all relative.
I bet
but
you
I don't
wouldn't.
know what would happen if I got into this topic.
Don't get into it with anyone you're prepared to lose, put it that way.
Who is what?
Who you're prepared to lose. If you don't want to lose someone,
That's
just
an
leave it off.
interesting thing to say. That's an interesting statement to make. I'll think about that. That I'm prepared to lose. Don't
Well, the
make an
thing is,
investment that you can't afford.
Yeah, the way I look at it is there are people who are holding you back in some sense. And I look at this subject as a great test of a person's own sovereignty. If a person can regard their own senses and their own ability to compile information and to trust themselves to at least form an opinion whether or not they have the ability to prove to themselves they're right or not, that is a big judge of character for me. So if I meet people and they don't have that openness, I feel sad for them, but I also recognise that it's their ego and that they're triggered. When people are triggered, you can tell it's because they're holding on to the way they thought it was. They want it to be the way they were taught.
Well, yeah.
Then they don't have to
They
change.
lose their security otherwise.
Yeah, but I like people who are secure in their insecurity. So I like to test and push and prod, and then I have very few people around me.
I like people who aren't captured.
Yeah.
Trump.
Trump, did you say?
Donald Trump.
But did you say you like people who aren't captured?
That's what he said.
Oh, did he?
Yes, because that's why he didn't think that John, what was his name, who died last year, who was a famous senator who ran for president, I forget names.
McCain?
John
McCain?
McCain, yeah. That he didn't believe he was a hero. He said because he was captured.
Yeah.
He said, I like people who aren't captured.
Yeah, he didn't even go to war.
No, I know, but that's a Trump.
Which a lot of people would say is a form of cowardice, but he's probably trying to say, look how clever I was, I didn't have to go.
Well, I know, he chose to stay.
And he was from a
He chose
rich
to stay
family.
captured rather than take the advantage offered him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I know.
He was a
But we're
prisoner
talking
of war.
Trump momentarily.
Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about that time travel story of that little boy, Baron Trump, from 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for me to prove if that book really existed without going and doing more research. I haven't done enough research on that.
Yeah.
It's great. You're dealing very well with your new president. You're dealing well.
Thank you. Oh, I don't want to go.
Look, we never know what's around the corner. Life always surprises us. Everything's in constant motion. Maybe things will change.
Maybe I'll play the lotto. Maybe I'll play the lotto and win big.
Maybe I'll write my book and sell 1 million copies.
You could do that too.
And then I'll buy you a house here.
Yeah, okay.
You guys can just come and keep the pool warm.
That would be great.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah. Do you ever play the lotto?
No. Tax for the dumb. But I am writing a book, and it might sell 1 million copies, especially if you advertise it.
It's for the dumb. I think I told you what Johnny Carson said about
No.
that. He said that how did he put it? You have just as much chance of winning by not buying a ticket.
My grandma used to always say about the lottery, tax for the dumb. And I used to love it. I thought it was so clever.
But
you have to be in it to
part of
win
us is dumb and will remain so.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if we want to give that up entirely.
I don't. I want my right to be dumb and wrong and fail. Yeah. But I also want my right to discern and to use my own senses. And nonsense is when you're not using your senses. Common sense is when we use our senses that we're all...
That's a good statement. That's a good statement, yeah. That's a very good statement. Make sure you include that in your book.
I'm going to include.
Maybe you could have that as a title to one of your chapters.
Maybe I should. Nonsense versus common sense.
Or maybe the title of the book itself.
Well, a lot of the dogma of astrophysics and stuff is nonsense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come from common sense.
Yeah,
It's conjecture,
that has
right?
to be in your book someplace.
Oh, it's not only
Prominent.
It's not only in my book, it's in many other people's books
of course
already.
It is, that's true. But I think that
These
emphasizing it, outlining it, or actually giving it that specific title would be a good idea.
You're going to edit my book, I think. You can read it and edit it for me. How are you with things like that? You and Marianne, you could read the book and.
Oh yeah. You're going to have pictures?
Oh, I'll put pictures in. Yeah.
Okay. Are you in the process of beginning the book yet?
I started it 7 years ago, and I'm going to finish it in the next 3 months because I need some money, and I want
How many pages do you think it will occupy, or how many words?
It's going to be longer than War and Peace.
And you think you could complete that in 3 months?
And sell 1 million copies. I don't think anything really. I don't even know if I'm going to complete it. I don't even know if I'm going to ever show the world anything that I write again. But that's what I want to do.
Well, you need it to be read.
I know. But everything I do gets no attention.
Well, I was going to say maybe you go on Oprah's, but she doesn't have a show anymore.
Nobody wants to promote the truth.
Well, I think if it's regarded as being far out, that they will promote it.
Right.
I think so.
So as long as I can hide my truth.
Genuinely controversial, I think they'll do that.
As long as I can be like, this is the far out truth, everybody.
Well, yeah.
The truth is far out.
That's a good way of putting it, but yeah, some program will look forward to it. Yeah,
Ellen's in trouble this week. She said she'd never had a vaccination all her life.
She did? I didn't know that.
And neither had her father. And he'd lived to 100 or something. And I think she got in trouble for saying that on air.
Why? Like she's
she's not anti-vaccine or anything, but she was just sort of, it was one of her birthday episodes, and she just sort of sprouted it like, I'm this healthy and happy and we've lived this long. Well, and I think she got in trouble. You know, like when Oprah in the 80s or 90s said beef isn't good and beef stocks plummeted 10% in one day. It's a bit like that. People really look up to these idols, and whatever they do, they want to do. Whatever Oprah does, I want to do. Not really, but, you know.
I think the best thing is to be independently wealthy and stay there. Just stay there. Be in a place like this if you want.
Where your money's making
and
money.
Write if you want. Or have things that I think you will want. You'll have things that you want to talk about. But you'll have the ocean.
I need to write this book now because I need to build you a heated pool.
Yeah.
If I built you a really nice heated pool on the hill, you'd be happy to stay in a tent.
Sure I would.
2 or 3 years you'd be happy to stay in a tent.
Sure I would. But maybe you live in a part of the world where a pool is not needed, that the water is already heated.
That's here most of the year. Yeah. But the thing is, I think that we could do this. I don't really ever want to finish the book for me because I don't want to build myself up. But when I think about, I could buy Ron and Marianne a pool, I know you'd let me come swim in it.
Well, you want one
with
for
the
yourself
dog.
too.
Of course.
You got to get one for yourself.
But to buy you guys a pool, I would need to really sell a lot of books. So that's why it doesn't hurt to dream, and you get more inspired when you're doing something for someone else, right?
Maybe that's another name for the book or a chapter in it.
Mm-hmm.
The heated pool.
Do you know that that's a joke from the Beatles or something?
What's that?
One of the Beatles, when they first were becoming famous, One of them was famous for saying, "We just wrote a swimming pool." They wrote a song.
Oh, really?
And they were like, "We could buy a new swimming pool with that." Imagine getting to that stage of creativity and receptivity. Receptivity is the
Christopher
thing.
Hitchens said when he won an Oscar for that movie, was it The Deer Hunter? I'm not sure.
Oh, Christopher Walken.
Walken.
Right.
Hitchens.
Yeah.
Christopher Hitchens is another guy you should read if you haven't.
My dad's always telling me to read him, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Walken said when he won the Academy Award, he held it up and he said, "This is a house."
Yeah. How practical. Well, actors so rarely get that regular income, and it's a real hard art, like music. And so good on him, good on one of them for buying
He's a
those.
fascinating character.
Yeah.
He really
Well, when I saw him dance, I loved him forever.
Yeah, that was
after
great.
Yeah.
That was great.
When you can see someone doing their thing.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about Fat Boy Slim.
Yeah, you were telling me.
But he did it in a movie.
Yeah.
Did you? I forget what it's called. Marianne will remember it, but.
And it
That's
was
the first I saw him
brilliant.
dancing.
Yeah,
He was really good.
so
And he said
loose.
that, and speaking of it, that he was highly complimented by both Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly.
I
And he
bet.
said he was surprised by it.
Well, I loved how loose it was. It was just beautiful to watch.
You know,
Loose, how loose.
yeah, that he is,
Yeah.
that he is. And that he is as an actor, too.
Yeah.
In fact, it was pointed out in a review about him that he always inserts some kind of unrehearsed, unprepared dance move in whatever movie he is in.
Right.
Yeah.
He was in The Deer Hunter, wasn't he? When he was in The Deer Hunter, where he was always
Yeah, he was
playing Russian
a
roulette.
very strong character.
And the heroin
You saw the
addict.
movie?
Yeah, I loved it. And I
Very
read the
upsetting.
book. Yeah, saddest
Very.
movie of all. Just so sad, but he wonderfully fulfilled that role.
Yeah. He has some sense of humor, too.
Oh, yeah.
He really does.
We're going to see how good your sense of humor is over the next 12 months.
Well, it used to be stronger, but...
That's no good to hear. So
Well,
anyway,
it's realistic.
so this pop culture scientist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, went on Joe Rogan's show, and they were discussing how they were going to have Eric Dubay on to once and for all settle that the Earth is a sphere and not a flat Earth. And they advertised it, they even put a date on it, and then they chickened out. Neil deGrasse Tyson refused to debate, and Joe Rogan has never spoken about it again. And it pissed me off because Eric is such a great speaker, and I just went and met him last year, and I thought, well, what the hell is going on? If you know that the Earth is a sphere, and you're a very well-known astrophysicist, you should turn up and set the poor young boys straight.
To debate.
So what I did was I put a wig on, and I made the debate myself, and I played all the characters. I played Neil deGrasse Tyson and Joe Rogan, and then I let Eric explain for himself the flat Earth part. And it's about 4 hours long, or 3 hours. It's on YouTube, and after you see that, it might be a few years before we're friends again. So I'm just telling you to enjoy today, and then we'll see how we go in the next part.
Yeah.
Because it's not good, and it's a lot of dick jokes, and a lot of homoerotic jokes.
But once again...
That's coming out of my anger because I'm not allowed to join the Freemasons.
I had spoken mistakenly, but still no, I shall return to the idea of Bill Maher. I mean, because he was always out front about smoking grass.
Yeah.
And I can picture that he would do the same thing about being on a flat Earth.
Yeah.
I don't know what he thinks or knows about it, but he would be, if he knew that was true, he'd bring it up.
But don't we know that they're all paid very well to allow certain information passed?
Yes,
and
I think that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody is in a position of power, speaking truth and promoted. That's why you've never heard of Eric Dubay.
And that's why I don't know that you have heard very much, or if you have, that it would have been anything other than negative about Wilhelm Reich.
Oh no, I love Wilhelm Reich.
Oh, you do?
I know that he cured cancer and he understood energies.
He could make it rain.
Yeah.
He
and
could.
like Tesla, he could gather energy and do free communication.
Right.
And
that's the therapist I was speaking to you, Marion and I, who lived to 100.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, he was the last living disciple.
Yes, right.
Of Wilhelm Reich and studied with him.
And didn't they kill Reich, or how did he die?
He was put in jail.
And he died penniless.
And he died, yeah, well, I guess it was penniless, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's still a Reich Orgone Institute in Maine someplace.
Good, I'm glad.
That distributes his literature and that keeps his
I know
his
that
discoveries alive.
His orgone machines that people could get inside.
It wasn't a machine, it was just an enclosure that accumulated atmospheric energy because of the nature of the energy, which is that it is attracted and reflected from metal and held in place through organic material, so that the enclosure, called an orgone box, as some people called it, an orgone accumulator, was constructed of alternate layers of metal and maybe cotton of some kind. And the innermost level, the one in which the patient would sit, was metal.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, I need to explore that a lot more. But to me, even to sit in meditation is orgone accumulating.
Yes.
You know, without even a box
around it. The problem with it is that
it.
it can have a very reverse effect by the energy that is in the surrounding atmosphere at the time. Right. So it can become deadly.
Wow, how interesting.
Yeah. There are books that you can now read of his. I guess you can download them now if you want to do that. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say to you.
And there's one that's called, excuse me for interrupting, one that's called The Mass Psychology of Fascism.
Oh,
you will
I'd love that.
Yeah.
By Reich.
By Reich.
So he understood politics very, very long time ago.
Yeah, but his understanding of it was not popular at all. Not in the slightest.
Because he's a natural
It's
sovereign.
crazy.
But you see, if you're naturally sovereign, which is the sensation that we are all equal, then you won't accept an external authority.
No.
And that's the only way to develop your own ideas to the place where Reich did, is to accept that nobody has the ability to be higher or lower, you know?
There's stuff you can get on YouTube.
I bet.
About him and his background. You
I'm
can just see it for free.
I'm going to look into him and Gurdjieff a lot now. Since him and Gurdjieff I want to look into.
Oh, yeah.
Been speaking
they're
to
very
you.
different. Very, very different. But maybe crossovers for all I know.
Yeah.
But coming from a
Absolutely.
different direction.
Philosophy versus kind of practical science. But Reich was dealing with the unseeable. But it's definitely...
he made it, he was able to bring it about so that you could see it.
That's what I mean.
You could see it through microscopes, and people rejected it. But there were and still are scientists who saw it and spoke of it themselves.
Exactly.
But he went to jail because he was accused of distributing false information, or the orgone accumulator, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And
curing cancers, and that's what they really got him for.
What is it again?
Curing cancers.
I don't know.
He wasn't popular for curing cancer. He was curing people's cancers.
Oh, yeah?
And they didn't want people curing people's cancers. Just like they don't today.
Yes, he did. He did. He did. But as I say, it could also reverse itself, depending on where the accumulator was placed.
Yeah.
The doctor I went to had one at one time.
Wow.
Then he had an apparatus that he called a door buster, DOR, something for deadly orgone energy that you could aim on a person's body that would draw it out from you.
Like pull the demons off your back, the
all
monkeys.
of this, well, see, all that stuff sounds crazy.
Sounds crazy, but if you've lived, you
But
will
he said,
accept that there are
in
certain
court,
things.
he says that he says lawyers and judges are in no position to make determinations about science.
Exactly.
Or scientific discoveries. I
Or
didn't want
what
to hear
he's
that.
been privately doing in his house for 20 years or something. It's like nobody will understand until they experience it.
But as I say, there's literature with photographs and so forth. And the effect that it would have on plants.
I know people still talk today about how incredible that orgone energy
But
box.
this therapist of ours says in a movie that was made, I hope we can all get to see it at some point. I have not, because it was just available to a certain coterie of people who were into Reich and who could afford to see it and so forth. I
Right.
hope it will be available to the general public. But one of the things that the psychiatrist, orgone therapist that I spoke of, the one who died just recently at age 100, said in the movie, putting Reich in prison, he says he's going to die if you put him in prison. He says it's like putting an eagle in a cage.
Yeah.
That
Of
description has
course,
stayed
yeah.
with me.
Yeah, it reminds me of when they just want the spirit suppressed. It's exactly what they did to Tesla, except with him he was in a hotel, and there were Oscar Wilde got put in a jail.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it
And
does kill
Giordano
the
Bruno.
spirit. Exactly.
That's what Reich spoke of.
Well, this is one of these things that's so interesting and doesn't fit with the picture of the flat earth, is that Bruno was apparently tortured for speaking on this globe concept. So if that's a true story, it doesn't fit, but is there a possibility that this is false history? You know, I can't rely on the words of men and the words of books for everything. I can read it and I can take it into account, but I can also accept that something printed in today's newspaper can be a big lie. So something 500 or 1,000 or 3,000 years ago can also be very badly distorted in a way that I'm not seeing.
Yeah, of course. And that's the kind of thing and the kind of information that Gurdjieff speaks about, stuff that goes that far back and even further. And that there are schools, well, he created a school that promulgates that kind of knowledge and background, but that there were schools in which that kind of what is now looked upon as ancient knowledge that were intentionally created all those many years ago. I think even pre-Atlantis.
Yeah, right. I think about Socrates and Plato and I really have no ability to tell if they're true stories, if they're fantasies, any more than I am able to tell if Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a kid or existed or didn't exist. It's all just, I have to do more research and get more of a feel on it, but I can't use any of it as scientific evidence for anything. It's all just, none of it is scientific evidence, it's all conjecture, and it could be being used to steer me. So what I'm talking about when I talk about the flat earth is the scientific evidence that this is a plane and not a sphere. So that's all. Anyway, we should finish the interview.
I wonder what Tesla might have understood about a flat earth.
Yes, me too.
He's a fascinating character.
There are a couple of quotes that are attributed to him, one of which is more definitely him, and one of which is, I think, falsely attributed to him, but apparently he described this as a realm. And I completely feel that we are in a realm, more so than a...
okay. Okay.
But a realm could be a globe or it could be a flat, you know.
Right.
A realm is just a fantastic term for
It's a
fantastic reality that we're in.
It's a state of being. Now, you got to meet a guy like that who understands what you and I are talking about. And then you can fall in love and be married to that guy.
I'd love that, but then I need, I
You
know.
got to find that guy.
I know, because you can't just spend all your day with somebody who you don't have anything mental.
No, that's why.
You're lucky to have Marion, and she's lucky to have you, because intellectually you are great matches.
Except that she disputes just about everything I say.
Well, you don't.
Except that, fortunately, she even gets mad about it too. But because she does, it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
It has that effect on me.
I know,
The
and that's
madder
why-
she gets, the more I laugh.
And you never age, because laughing is the fountain of youth.
I can't. I mean, I see how adamant and sincere she is, and it just strikes me.
Well, look,
I am not. I have to say, look, you are not listening to what I'm saying. I'm not talking about what you are talking about. I can't get past that.
I love that you laugh and say that, but when you go back into your world and you are on YouTube and one day you watch Elissa dressed up as Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Okay.
you're going to see and understand completely why I'm not married and will never be.
Well, I understand right now.
I know.
I understand now.
I know, that's why you feel sorry for me and ask me around for breakfast. 'Cause you're like,
well, there might be someone out there. There's gotta be. I mean, look at the just look at the possibility. We're talking about billions of people in the world.
I know, but most of them are not.
Yes,
at all.
most. I'm only talking about one.
You only need one. That's why I've always believed there must be one.
Put an ad in.
It's like God is making, nature is making me wait so long. It's like I'm going to be ugly by the time they come, because I'm going to have doubted myself for 50
You won't be
years.
ugly to anyone, like who matters. You
I
won't
love
be.
you, Ronnie.
That person will never be able to see you as ugly.
Helen Keller.
Well, okay, I don't know.
She was about the intellect that I need, to me.
Well, okay.
She was much smarter than me, and I want someone who can
look,
teach me.
For all of her difficulties, you know about her.
I love her.
And I do too.
And apparently she's also a bit of a dodgy one towards the end.
She's a bit of...
A dodgy character towards the end.
yeah?
I've heard some things about her. I haven't researched enough into it, but that she was, she either got used politically or became useful to people.
That's kind of amazing.
Isn't it?
Kind of astounding.
Isn't it? She became such a icon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
That's
amazing.
astounding.
And it was to do with her teacher a lot and being shown love, I think. Her teacher is probably, her initial teachers when she was a young girl, they were probably the equal to her. Because if she didn't come across them, she would have just been institutionalized, or maybe not. Maybe she had a spirit.
No, she was a miracle person, though.
Yes.
Miraculous.
Yeah,
person.
just like you.
Yeah.
Oh, I must go, Ronnie, because I've got to get ready for
All right.
a friend's party. But thank you for letting me interview you, darling. Wonderful. I love you too. And I guess same time next year we'll do part 2, unless we do a Skype interview.
Unless one of us hits the lotto.
Yeah.
In which case we don't have to wait for a full year.
You know what? I'm going to write that frickin' book.
Okay, do write it. Write it.
I will, because you'll read it.
Okay.
No,
I'm
one
looking
person
forward
will
to
read it.
So, are you going to
Let's
have
see
anyone-
if you can get through my Neil deGrasse Tyson YouTube series.
I'll do it, but are you going to have anyone critique it before you publish it?
Do you know what I just thought? Would
I'll
you
do it to
please,
the degree to which I
if
can,
you-
but I mean an actual book critic.
I probably, but I don't take
An editor.
criticism well. I don't want anyone's opinion.
Okay,
I don't care. I don't want to I'd rather have $10 to my name for the rest of my life than someone improve upon what's already perfect.
Okay. I might be able to help you with titles.
You know what I'd love you to do? I'd love you to watch me with a wig on pretending to be Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Go ahead.
And I would love you to...
You already have the wig?
Yeah, I already have 3 hours of it on YouTube. And I would love you...
On YouTube?
Yeah, I'd love you to watch it And if you find it funny, I'd love you to share it with your real astrophysicist friend who's super intelligent.
Okay.
And then I would like you to report back to me on how triggered he is.
Are you saying it is presently on YouTube?
Yeah.
What do I look for?
I'll send it to you. It's
You
under.
can't-
It's
you
just
keep
look up
telling me you're gonna
Elissa
send me
Hawke.
something. I'm afraid that you won't.
I will. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm gonna ruin your life.
Okay, but you still don't have my email address.
Let's turn this camera off.
Without that information.
I'm turning this camera off,
It's
and
like
I'm going to get your
okay,
email.
okay.
And next year, I promise I'll interview you.
Okay. You'll turn the camera
Yeah.
around. Okay.
Oh, you're wonderful.
Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay.
Ron Reuben, legend, the man, the myth.
Go.
That's you.
What? You want me to?
That's the end.
I've already said I love you.
That's all I needed.
You got that.
Thanks, darling. I love
That's
you
in
too.
the bag.